Hello, welcome to West Ham Confidential on Revelator Alf. So this coming weekend we're facing off against Chelsea at the London Stadium. So we got a result against them last season, and after the win at Everton, hopefully the team and the whole squad actually should be feeling quite confident and buoyant. But Chelsea, a completely different proposition, as we all know. Although we have fared quite well, especially last season, one win and a draw against them. But let's face it, they've got lots of quality all over the pitch, and let's not forget they've also started rather well with a 100% win record already. So it's going to be a tough day for us. Look, you know, they've got a European game, or they just had a European game this week as well. Our game's on Sunday, giving them an extra day to rest. They did rest a couple of their key players in that game so they could be fit and able for the game against us on Sunday. So most notably Hazard. So, you know, Hazard probably one of the best players in Europe, if not the best player in Europe, you might argue, and you know he's on fire at the moment, as are many of the other Chelsea players. Their new manager Sarri has come in, and he's basically changed the way they're playing. You know, they're more going for attack. They're trying to go for the jugular, you know, with different teams, and they're playing with kind of lots of confidence and, you know, passing the ball around well. And they're exposing teams, you know, which have vulnerable defences. Yes, West Ham. That's the problem, isn't it? You know, we're going to be facing off against a team who like to actually go right down the throat of teams, and that's where we suffer most. You know, they're good on the wings. You know, we're not very good at defending on the wings. They're good at putting crosses in. We're poor at stopping crosses coming in. And they're good in front of goal, or excellent in front of goal, whereas we're quite poor in defending in front of goal. Yes, we had a great win against Everton, but let's not forget that they had 4 or 5 chances themselves, and on another day, another team might have put those away as well. So we could have easily lost that game. Yes, I know it's all, you know, semantics, but the fact of the matter is that we still have a vulnerable defence. I think our team, you know, we've got to be confident, and we've got to go into the team confident. And Pellegrini has to set our team up confident in a confident way as well. However, I don't want us to be... or for him to be naive to set us up to go toe-to-toe with Chelsea, because I think we will lose. I think when we faced off against Liverpool in the opening fixture of the season, I think he was a bit naive. I think he thought that we were better than we actually were, and that the players had bedded in a lot sooner than they actually did. I think he underestimated how good Liverpool were. And that's why we came unstuck. Yeah, I know we lasted for a few minutes, you know, and held out. But, you know, in the end, we got trumped. I think it'd be the same here against, you know, Sarri's Chelsea. I think, you know, let's not underestimate them. Yes, they are Chelsea. Yes, they, you know, they can be, in the past, they can be, you know, quite... mechanical, if you like, in the way they play, but there is a new dimension to the way they're playing this season, and they are quite Liverpool-esque in terms of always wanting to go forward. So I think, you know, we've got to be really strong in the back and really, you know, pack out that midfield. Look, I know we're at home, absolutely, and you want to take the game to others, but this is about points. This is about, you know, getting points off the big teams and moving up the table. I think the games to actually, you know, go on the attack are against the Bournemouths and the Wolves, which we should have won, of course. But, you know, we should be leaving it for those. And this is what I feel, and probably this is what a lot of other people think. Let's be real about this. This is, you know, the top 6 teams. They are top 6 for a reason. We've been struggling for the last couple of seasons for a reason. We're not as good as them. Although we all like to think that, you know, we can beat any team on our day, that's a reality. So I think, you know, if we try and go toe-to-toe, if we try and go, you know, on the attack because we're at home, you know, to entertain our home crowd, I just think we're going to come unstuck. I think, you know, we've got to set up quite similar to the way we did at Everton, in that we have like a 4-3-3 that we can be attack-minded on the counter-attack, but also we can pack out the midfield with a 5 when we're on the defensive. And if you notice the way, yes, Noble was playing, but more so Obiang and Rice, the way they kind of sat in front of the back four and, you know, stopped a lot of the pressure that was coming on to the back four. They've got, you know, if you think they had an immense game against Everton, they've got to step it up even more, unfortunately, you know. And the same with, you know, whoever comes on to replace them. Sanchez, I like Sanchez as a player. I like the way he plays around, but I do worry about his one big failing, which I think is, you know, he doesn't seem to be aware of which opposition players are around him when he's receiving the ball. So he's giving away the ball in key areas on a, you know, 3 or 4 occasions now, a couple of times in the Everton game, and crucially for the goal in the Wolves game. So I think, you know, we've got to be really strong in the middle of the park. Obviously, you know, we don't have Wilshere. He's out for a few weeks, you know, 6-7 weeks minimum, you would imagine, with the ankle injury, and I believe there's surgery as well. You've got to factor Yarmolenko and Anderson are going to play. They're starting to, you know, bubble to the surface. And Arnautovic, obviously, he's got to play, isn't he? You know, who do we have in the back? You know, do we stick with, you know, Balbuena and Diop? I think that's a really good little partnership they're going. But they did make mistakes in there. Now, the question, you know, for you out there, and please, you know, put it in the comments. Who would you have at left back and right back? Because I think these are going to be key areas against Chelsea, you know, to try and stop them playing. That's the key thing. We've got to stop them playing their game. You know, as we did last season when we basically bossed Hazard out of the game. So, you know, if we're going to stop them, do we have Zabaleta or Fredericks on the right-hand side? Do we have Creswell or Masuaku on the left-hand side? Because I think that we should be more defensively minded and not necessarily have real pace on the wings, on the wing backs, the left back, right back positions as well. I would go slightly more for the experience and slightly more for the defensive minded. So I would go for Creswell on the left and Zabaleta on the right. I think Zabaleta is a better option right now instead of Fredericks. I think let's say Fredericks, you know, for the weaker teams, so we can expose them on the right hand side. Same with Masuaku. I've got a feeling he's going to stick with Masuaku on the left, because although he wasn't really tested the week against Everton, he still played quite well in his defensive roles, but also moving forward. Still got to be better link-up play, Masuaku, and then up Anderson on the left-hand side. And obviously, whoever's on the right, Zabaleta or Fredericks, you know, linking up with Yarmolenko on the right-hand side as well. So I think, you know, overall, those two key positions, they're going to have to be strong in defence to stop the, you know, the Chelsea attack. So what does that mean? You know, that doesn't mean that we have to park the bus and sit back. This means that we have to stop them playing right from their penalty area. So it's a high press. It's, you know, it's closing down early. You know, the work rate, unfortunately, you know, I keep on talking about work rate and, you know, performance and everything, but that's what it takes against these top teams. You know, well, all teams really. But certainly the teams that are on paper, they have better players and are better than you. Well, that's what Chelsea are right now. You know, the league position and the points tally says that all really, doesn't it? So we've got to stop them playing. You know, we've got to harass them and hurry them, you know, and into making mistakes. And that's exactly what we did last season. You know, at the London Stadium when we won, and it's, you know, pretty much what we did for large portions of the game when we played in the Stamford Bridge. You know, when we actually came away with a really good hard-fought draw, and I think that's what we need to see again. Yes, we're confident for the win, but we can't let that go to our heads. I think we've got to take the game to Chelsea, but be intelligent about it. You know, stop them playing first, try and hit them hard on the counter attack. Now, interestingly about, who we're going to have up front, and obviously what formation are we going to play? He's still going to go with the 4 at the back, isn't he? Will he play a 3-3 or a 5-1? Is yet to be seen. Will he stick with the Noble, Rice and Obiang in the middle? I don't think you can have Rice and Sanchez and Obiang there because they're all much of the same. We do need some forward motion as well. Rice, I thought, played fantastically well in that, not only his defensive duties, because he pretty much bossed the midfield there, but also he was good at actually putting the ball forward. Noble, not so great, but he still had that terrier-like attitude to get in there, and he made that second goal opportunity for Yarmolenko in that he pressed high and closed down early. The ball bobbled free, and Yarmolenko went on to score. So it's that kind of industry that we need in the middle of the park. I would not be surprised if Pellegrini starts with Noble, Rice and Obiang again. I wouldn't be surprised. Especially as Wilshere is out of the picture, and especially as possibly that's how he wants to pack the midfield to really stop the pressure coming on through the centre of the park, actually, onto our defence. Look, I would love to say that we're going to win, and I predict that we will actually win this by 2-1. Now, I'm notorious in my own lunchbox for knowing that I'm crap at predictions. Unless last week, when in the first time in 40 years, I actually predicted a correct scoreline. But again, I think I'm on a bit of a wave, and I think we're going to win 2-1. Now, we could easily lose this 4 or 5-0. It could easily be a draw. It could easily be a horribly boring, dull affair, or it could be a hugely entertaining, spectacle. We just don't know. It really depends how we set up and which Chelsea turn up as well. And I think notably it's how Hazard plays. If we stop Hazard playing, and if Willian plays as well, if we stop these two players, from creating and moving forward, then I think we've got the game won. Because I still don't think they're that great, up front. Whoever their front line are, it's the Hazard is the key player, isn't he? And then, from the back, Marcos Alonso as well, he's a kind of player that can be dangerous on his day as well. So it's their defence and also their midfield moving forward. That's what we've got to stop. Stop their creative process. Stop them coming onto our midfield and onto our back 4. And then if they do break through, we're just hoping that the Fabianski's great form, I've got to say that, great form, can, save the day once again, or minimise the scoreline. If it's got to be a loss, then hopefully it won't be by a large deficit, so that we can keep the goal difference, reasonably in check. But anyway, what do you think? Let me know. I know a lot of people out there will say, no, we've got to go and take the game to them. But I just think we've got to be a little bit more smart here. And I think Pellegrini's got to be smart with the way he uses his players and the way he uses his subs. Now, obviously, there's been a big hoo-ha this week about Lucas Perez. Now, I said in my last video, soon after the match, that there was this kerfuffle and on the subs bench, and he didn't put on Lucas Perez because he wasn't ready. He chose Antonio. I said at the time that was a load of bump, and it was proven right. And this again, it's been blown up out of proportion, and people have sort of ran with the story, ran with the idea, and I think it's just it's a bit of nonsense. He wasn't ready. He'd done some training. He wasn't ready. He was speaking to the coaches, and just Pellegrini just quickly changed his mind and put on Antonio, who was there right in front of him, basically training. There's a whole other argument to say, okay, should all your subs be absolutely ready to go, at the drop of a hat? And I think they should. There shouldn't be any need to, tie up your boots or, your laces or put shin pads in or all this kind of stuff. That's it. You should be ready to go. So I think possibly there is a bit of a failing there in the system, but I don't think Perez as anything to be ashamed of. And in fact, he even came out with a statement, trying to defend himself, which, because this rumour mill spiralled out of control. Anyway, one last thing. Some of you may or may not have seen the photos after the Everton game when Pellegrini was on the plane and he'd been given a birthday cake by the fans. Now, possibly you didn't, may have noticed this, may not have noticed this, but actually the cake, it was in the shape of a West Ham shirt, and it was all, the sponsorship on there, but it had the old West Ham badge on there as well. So I just think, well, that's, from a PR point of view, that's a bit of a no-no, and I can just imagine Brady, Sullivan and Gold sort of going, cringing, going, oh, the fans are still wanting the old badge type thing. But I thought it was a nice touch, actually, for the have the old badge, remind all these new people that come to the club, actually, we've got a long history with our old badge, and although, the new badge is growing on a lot of people, there is still a fondness for the old badge and the old heritage and where we've come from as well. Still the issues with the stadium rumble on, still fans, match day experience rumbles on, perfectly understandable. There's still a long way to go. I think somebody I talked to recently said it's going to take a generation for the fans to kind of embrace the London Stadium or to start really enjoying that London Stadium. And I think they're absolutely right. I still think we have an infection within our not within our fan base, but within our game, in that, we've kind of been, because we're the Premier League, because we're new at this London Stadium with a much bigger capacity, we've attracted so many Premier League fans as opposed to West Ham fans. I'm convinced of it. I think because there's been so much turmoil over the last couple of seasons and so much displeasure with the board and all their antics over the last couple of seasons as well, that everybody's just, on a big downer. And I think sometimes you need a big flood just to wipe the slate clean and, everybody starts again. And possibly this is where we're at now. I think, yes, we can keep on moaning about the stadium and the atmosphere, which is really dire at times, for the most part. Yes, there are occasional matches when, we lift our spirits and everybody gets into it. But for the most part, it isn't. The songs and the chants sort of echo and they kind of fade into the vastness of the London Stadium. And the reason being because 90% or 80% of the fan base aren't singing, aren't chanting. I go there and I sit around me, and it's almost like, people are looking at you, glaring at you if you stand up and shout and say, oh, Irons, or, up the Hammers, or, want to start a song. People looking at you going, what are you doing? So I think that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is that got too many people who don't really want to get up for it there anymore. Don't want to stand up, aren't allowed to stand up. Piss people off if you stand up or sit down. It's a difficult one. I don't know what the answer is, but you do know that there are some games when the fans can lift their spirits and, can sing around and, and sing, the roof off if we had one. So I think, this game against Chelsea is a good opportunity for all fans, to, really raise the roof here and really, show the team, what the London Stadium can be. And again, it's up to us fans, isn't it? It's up to us fans to, show that support, show that spirit, and hopefully the team can deliver. That would give the fans something to cheer about as well. We can't, blame the fans for the lack of atmosphere. We've got to look at the team and see why they haven't produced in the last couple of seasons. But coming off the Everton win, everything starts to look a little bit rosy. They need that extra push now. They can't be complacent against Chelsea. They can't think, okay, we've won a match, we can easily go and do over Chelsea. No, it takes extra work and extra effort. And this is where the fans, the surge of, atmosphere, can really help here. So I think, that kind of thing, that's what we've got to start looking at. All the other issues with the match day experience and the the stadium and the way people are treated and the stewarding and all the, I still hear some real horror stories out there about certain fans' experience. And, I've noticed it myself. Sometimes, the stewarding or, the security, and you think, well, what are you doing? What are you saying? You're talking absolute nonsense. Or you go and try and get a drink, and it's just like, you're dealing with the Walking Dead there as well. I think it's going to take a generation. I agree with a friend of mine who said it. I think it's going to take a generation for the fans to get used to it. It's going to take a generation for the kids. And I'm talking my lad's age, who I take with me, 12 years old, 10, 5 years old, to actually go through 15, 20 years. So then they're the 25, 30-year-olds who will make up the bulk of the London Stadium crowd. And then, the older fans, myself included, 25 years time, well, I'll be lucky to still be on this earth. So, that whole transition generation, if you like, would have gone. And then be replaced by a new generation. And then that new generation, all they'll know is the London Stadium, really. So unfortunately, it's a long con, and that's what we're going to have to face. Now, what's going to happen in the future with the stadium in terms of ownership, whether we're going to take it on, who knows? The whole thing is a complete mess. Until that's sorted out, there's going to be a lot of hooing and crying. But anyway, it's, we've got to make the best of it when we're in the stadium, when we're watching the game. I think that's the only thing we can do. That's the only positive we can have. Anyway, check me out for the post-match blurb on Sunday. Unfortunately, I can't be at the game because I'm actually at work. I've been called into work. So I'll hopefully get to the next game afterwards, though. But catch you on the next West Ham Confidential, whenever that is. Well, it'll be soon after the game, hopefully. Cheers.